Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. This is a shot of whiskey, and the St. Louis Blues have won the Stanley Cup. Yeah, I know this is a bit late, but I'm saying it now. Gloria! As for the meat of this video, I was recently inspired to do it thanks to a video done a while ago by Tim Pool and another one by RPW. I thought it would be somewhat fun and potentially rewarding to look back at one of the most iconic pieces of digital fecal matter to come out of BuzzFeed's technological orifice. 36 questions women have for men. To sum it up, BuzzFeed has been doing a bunch of layoffs lately due to budgeting issues, and recently the employees have been attempting to unionize and get more money. Why anyone thinks that budget cuts are the perfect time to demand bigger paychecks is a mystery to me. That's in reference to the Tim Pool video. RPW did a response to a gal who was complaining about never having a serious relationship and wanting to have a baby, and I think she looks a lot like one of the gals in this video. I'm pretty sure it's not her, but they do kind of look alike, enough to where I was able to make that connection. Anyway, as for my new answers to this video, starting off with this opening shitstorm. Oh, sorry, hold on, before we get into that. You guys may have noticed the quality of the sound has changed. That's because this is the first video in which I am using my brand new Yeti microphone. These things usually go for about $140. I actually got this thing on sale for $100, so yay, sales. Let me know what you guys think of the quality of the sound, and please be brutally honest. If something's not sounding right, please let me know, okay? Cool, thank you. Let's get on with this stuff, okay?
How does it feel to be the same sex as Donald Trump?
This question makes me think that these BuzzFeed bitches thought that the only men who would be watching their claptrap videos would be guys who think and act like the Try Guys. To answer the question, I still feel nothing. It's no different than how I feel about being the same sex as Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, Voldemort, Papa Smurf, Nick Fury, 70% of suicides, 80% of homeless, or 93% of workplace fatalities. To steal and alter a line from their 9 questions Native Americans have for whites, we're not all connected through the power of the penis.
Why do you hate rom-coms? Or do you just feel like you need to hate them?
Just like with people, I hate movies on an individual basis. Most rom-coms are dull, with lame jokes, often being anti-male I might add, and the plots are almost always worthless. They tend to have the same writing level as middle schooler love fantasies. I've pointed out in my original response video that I liked My Big Fat Greek Wedding, The Other Sister, and The Princess Bride, and there are some others as well. But most of them are designed to please you, and not me, and as such, there is no appeal from me for them. It's not that difficult.
Everybody likes The Notebook, everybody likes Beyonce. It's just a fact.
According to the International Movie Database, over 475,000 people voted on whether they loved this movie. They gave it a 7.9 out of 10. That would be a C+, not an A+. So no, not everyone. I also looked at the plot summary. It sounds like such a waste of time that I don't even see how you could enjoy it. What woman in her right mind, or even her animalistic mind, would want to hook up with a guy who's unquestionably of a lower class than she is? Because he's quote-unquote good looking? Yeah, I don't buy it. And Beyonce is still an overrated, underperforming stripper. The only people who like her are easily herded feminists and simps who still think she's hot. No thanks. I'll pass.
Why do you make women sit around and talk about men in movies?
I'm going to cut them off right here for now. She's complaining about movies. Stop dealing in lies and join the world of reality. Nobody is forcing these women to say these things. They agreed to play a role. They are reciting scripts, which, by the way, is a common thing to see in rom-coms. Women talking about men. How can you not see that? Nobody with an IQ above 70 takes the Bechdel test seriously.
When y'all easily just sit around and talk about boobs for hours.
Let's pretend that this were the case. So what? Are you jealous that we're not talking about your boobs? You know, seeing as how you don't have any? The fact that you care what men say among other men shows that you want to control us in every way imaginable, which is probably why you're a feminist.
Why do you automatically assume that you won't like TV or movies that star a female lead?
Prove to me that men think this way. I can prove to you that this is not the case. The Alien franchise, for example, was led by Sigourney Weaver, a woman, and is primarily loved by men. Personally speaking, Star Trek Voyager is my favorite of the Star Trek series, not including Next Gen, and the captain is played by Kate Mulgrew, a woman. Do you know how many anime titles there are that men like with a female lead? 2 of my all-time favorite 3 have female leads, Slayers and Blue Seed. Most porn stars a female lead, and we eat that shit up a lot. The recent Captain Marvel movie was popular among men, though probably not as much so as nearly every other comic book movie to come out since Tobey Maguire was the famous web crawler. Personally, I didn't see it, and I don't want to see it. Why? Because I knew who Captain Marvel was before these movies were a thing, back when liking comic books and their characters was exclusively a geek culture thing because normies, cool kids, and feminists saw comic books as being beneath them. I always believed that she was a boring character, long before we saw and heard how much SJW rhetoric was put into this film. I had no interest because I never cared for the character. Now, if I, as a male, truly had this idiotic viewpoint that you think I do because I have testicles, then I wouldn't have a female as the main character in my novel, would I?
Why are you surprised when women are funny?
It's only surprising in certain situations and with certain women. For example, none of you are funny, at least not based off of this video or any others I've seen. But Lucille Ball is still, to this day, one of the funniest celebrities of all time. The folks I work with are 9 men and 2 women, and we're all funny, except for one of the men. Kathy Griffin used to be funny, a little bit. Whoopi Goldberg used to be funny before joining The View. Amy Schumer, well, I've never really found her to be funny. In fact, I'd say she's about as funny as a dead kitten. So let's go ahead and move on.
I'm probably funnier than you.
Let's assume that this is true, which we all know it's not. Why not provide a demonstration in this video? Like a stand-up comedy routine. I want to see you prove your point rather than make an empty claim. Oh, by the way, the sad wannabe mother from the RP video I mentioned at the beginning looks like this bitchy giraffe.
Why do you think that we're obsessed with you when we hook up?
When did you and I ever hook up? No, but seriously though, that depends on the type of hookup, right? If we just shag one time, just for the sake of it, then there shouldn't be a need for me to think this about you. Nor should there be a need for you to assume this about me. Also, there are a lot of examples of crazy exes who refuse to be let go. And based on the contents of this video, I would imagine that a lot of guys think that you may be one of these broads.
9 times out of 10, I just want you to leave too. I'm busy. I got shit to do.
Fine by me. I'd be ashamed if I ever shagged you. Hell, I might have to write a Me Too story online about it, since I doubt I would do you voluntarily. But for the guys who are into blonde giraffes, they'd most likely be fine with you leaving as well. Now that I think about it, what about the remaining 1 out of 10 times? Are you a clean cut then, because you know that you're going to hit the wall soon, but don't want to admit it?
Why can't I sleep with as many people as I want to without being judged?
Because people judge. All the time, in every way calculable. And we do it differently too. Many women will congratulate you for being in a 10-on-1 gangbang. And many men will shame other men for shagging more than one woman within a month. Plus, we have different biological parts, and I'm not just talking about dicks and testicles versus vaginas and ovaries. Along with having components that provide different functions for reproduction, which realistically speaking, much of the stigmas come from reproduction, we also have different thought processes. Typically. Usually, women are less sexually driven than men. By a lot. They are also more selective than men. Have you ever heard of the 80-20 rule? Here. Let's look at it this way. Let's say that all of humanity has its numbers knocked down to a mere 50 people. If one of those 50 is a man and the other are women, there could be 49 new humans within a year, assuming that each woman bears only one child and nobody dies in the process. Now, switch the sexes in this example. 1 woman and 49 men. Within a year, there will only be 1 new human, and odds are the identity of the father would be questionable.
When men do it, they're congratulated.
The only degree of truth to this claim that I can think of is that it's because men have to work for sex. You just have to say, I want to fuck, and you'll have potential mates clamoring for a chance to aid you in your dilemma. But not me, though. But speaking of me, if I tried that, I'd be rejected and possibly mocked, and maybe even labeled as a potential sexual predator. I have to work for it in order to be a viable mate, unless I find a gal who sees so little in sex that she has no problem taking seed from any dick that waves in front of her face. I doubt you're like this, but unless you are that eager for jizz, don't worry about guys congratulating each other for getting some from a chick who may or may not be of a high quality. Instead, help those guys nut more often so they'll feel better about themselves and not see as much a need to celebrate an easy achievement.
Why do you consider a woman a tease if she doesn't sleep with you after 3 dates, but a slut if she sleeps with you on the first date?
Because you're not intelligent enough to separate 2 different ex-boyfriends from one another. Personally, I think you're a slut in both cases, but the real question is whether or not you see that as a bad thing or a good thing, which many feminists are currently declaring that being a slut is a good thing. Do you disagree? If so, keep your legs closed. However, I can also see some validity in the original argument made by Turd-Flinging Monkey, that a lot of it depends on how much money the man is spending on you. If he's spending hundreds of dollars just to feed you, do something to show your appreciation. I'll leave the rest up to you.
In what world does no mean yes?
No means no.
Preschool. Have you never interacted with little kids? They're constantly disregarding the word no because they want it to be yes and will act like it's a yes because they want to. Now, not all kids are like this, of course, and even the good kids will go bad every now and then. But as far as us adults, unless you're completely demented or in denial, you can't refute that many women love to play hard to get. It's one of the many tests that women give to men because they want to see how much the man actually wants them, or more accurately willing to put up with them. The men who don't quote-unquote understand. It's not that they don't understand, it's that they don't care.
Why do you say that women are too emotional to be leaders?
Because most women tend to rely on emotions and feelings. Facts are meaningless to these women, and unfortunately to a bunch of men as well. These types tend to vote Democrat, by the way. Stop assuming that when things don't go your way that it's due to what sex you are. Maybe you're just an incompetent dolt.
Then justify catcalling by saying men just can't control themselves.
This has been said by nearly every single person that I have seen who's responded to this tripe. Nobody has ever said that. Besides, comparing catcalling to being in charge of a company or a professional team of some sort is pathetic and dishonest.
Why do you think that just because you're nice to me, I owe you my body?
I couldn't even begin to answer this question honestly, because I'm not one of these guys. Now, I could understand if said man was your boyfriend, but not a basic dude who was doing something nice for the sake of being nice, or even some guy who's just your friend. Let me ask you this. Why is it that women who are already in sexual relationships with men will use sex as a way to motivate the guy into doing some menial, dirty, and or dangerous task, and then deny him that sex after he's done? If you're going to offer your body as a bargaining chip, then you should pay up when he keeps his end of the agreement.
Why would you ever send an unsolicited dick pic?
If you don't want random dick pics sent your way, maybe you should limit who gets your contact info. Personally, I've only sent dick pics to 2 women. One was my then girlfriend. She and I were already shagging, and I sent it to her as a joke. The other was a friend who was possibly going to be a friend with benefits. I did it as part of an agreement with her because she was somewhat shy, and I recommended it as a way to eventually break the ice. She liked the idea, and the pics, and send some tit pics my way. And yes, they were nice. Unfortunately, we had to move away from each other before any happy times could take place. Speaking of which, I wonder how she's doing.
Why do you feel like it's okay to harass women or make offensive comments about women?
Here's yet another mid-question interruption on my part. I want you to define harass. Now, obviously, I know what that word means, but what about you? Feminists have sodomized that word, as well as a few others, in order to feed the victimization of women and vilification of men as much as possible. Saying hello to a woman or looking in her general direction aren't harassment, yet many modern-day feminists are trying to claim that they are. Let's work on that part first.
But when somebody does it to your sister, it's not okay.
Because she's my sister and I care about her, whereas I don't care about your weak feelings being shattered like a china plate being shot by a cannon. Now, I have 3 sisters, in case you didn't know. 2 of them are more than capable of telling such guys off, assuming that they'll behave like butthurt simpletons like you, instead of human beings with social skills. And the 3rd sister is married to a guy who will stand up for her.
How does it feel to interrupt me when I'm in the middle of making a...
How does it feel when you interrupt men, regardless of the situation? Okay, in your specific case, my question may not yield the best response. You probably get off on it. Men interrupt women like they interrupt other men. Or like how women interrupt men or each other. It's not a matter of gender, but of manners.
Why do you have to sit with your legs so wide open?
We all know the answer to this one. Even these malicious harpies know it, but they don't care. Testicles, penises, and hip shapes. You're welcome.
I get that you have balls, but I don't stand around with my arms wide open to make room for my boobs.
Even though you clearly have the biggest bust out of this group, your analogy is completely idiotic. Look at where your arms are right now. Your boobs aren't being crushed. They're not even a hindrance. I can also vouch for this fact as I used to crossplay with D-cup breast forms. It's not the same thing, so pretending that your arms to boobs dynamic is the same thing as my legs to nuts just goes to show that you're a moron, or really desperate to validate your hatred. And stop thinking about my balls, unless you want me to empty them on your boobs. If you were a non-human animal, we'd all be thinking that your moves are suggesting that you may have rabies, and that we should shoot you before you can infect our children.
Why are women perceived as the weaker sex? Even though we literally birth you, like watermelons, through like this.
Because you are the weaker sex. That's just reality. Have you not noticed that sports are separated by sex? Yeah, the current trans athlete debate is making things a bit complicated, what with many male to females winning women's competitions after doing terrible in men's, yet no female to males are doing the same thing in men's competitions. I wonder why that is. It should be obvious to anyone, including those that have been brain damaged by the messages of feminism, that men are stronger than women. It's the reason men have gone to war since the existence of war. It's the reason why our many societal norms include the idea that men can never hit women. It's the reason men do the manual labor jobs, such as construction. It's the reason women ask men to open a pickle jar and move furniture. And the fact that you're comparing strength to something that doesn't require strength is just sad. You can be the biggest wuss on the planet, someone who can't even carry 15 pounds, and still give birth. And I still doubt that you, Asian Bieber, will ever have to worry about giving birth.
Why is it so bad to show your emotion?
In other words, why is it bad to be a whiny crybaby bitch in front of women? The answer is because we tend to be the pillars of strength in our society, and for multiple reasons. For starters, if I wanted to decrease my odds of nailing you, which I would actually consider doing in your case, I know that you wouldn't give me a second thought if I were to bawl my eyes out because the men's bathroom at Starbucks was out of order. Your interests would evaporate. Another example is in the case of fatherhood. Children look to their fathers for guidance, support, and strength, which is one reason why feminism tends to hate Father's Day.
It means you're human.
Okay, I get that you're trying to compare us to emotionless robots, but here's the thing. Sadness is not the only emotion that's out there. Secondly, emotions are not the only defining parameter of being a human being. Case in point, animals display emotions, including sadness, all the time. One thing that is typically human, especially manly, is the ability to not allow our emotions to prevent us from moving forward. As it says in the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. There's also that song by the Byrds, Turn, 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 that says the same thing, but in a different order. The thing is, we know, at least when we're real men and not the sissy soy boys who watch BuzzFeed for news, when to let our emotions out, how not to lose control, and to cry when being vulnerable is okay. It's just another example of men being stronger than women.
Why are you always trying to prove your masculinity to me?
You won't be complaining about my masculinity when I'm nailing you from behind and pulling your hair. Seriously, watch my response to the kink video BuzzFeed did. This exact woman is Sierra. She said that that's her kink. If, for some reason, I'm going out of my way to prove my masculinity to you, it's either because I want to turn at that ass or that rack, or it's to demonstrate to you man-hating cunts why it is that men are different than women.
Why the isn't it ladylike to cuss?
Because it's not polite to cuss. This basic concept is part of the reason why YouTube's current demonetization issues include swearing. It's not polite. Though now that I think about it, I wonder if these rules will actually apply to BuzzFeed when they break them. Anyway, back to the giraffe lady. Politeness is part of being ladylike, just like how it's part of being gentlemanly. This isn't a gendered issue, you just want it to be. Or you're too stupid to realize it.
When did words get gendered?
Always, you illiterate simpleton. You want an example? Feminism. That word itself is gendered. It's the empowerment of women so that way they can, assumably, be equal to men. Most languages around the world are very gendered in their speech. In Spanish, for example, almost all of their nouns end in O because they're masculine, or in A because they're feminine, while also having L or la being gendered words that loosely translate into the word the. Other languages, such as Hebrew, Arabic, and Japanese, will also have verbs, adjectives, titles, and even sentence structures based on the sex of the one speaking and the one being spoken to. Heck, even English used to be like this at some point, but as time has gone by, our language has become a bit more gender neutral, at least compared to just about everybody else.
Why is it your first instinct to doubt women who have been sexually violated or raped?
Wow, what a loaded question. Thanks for proving that you are, in fact, a man-hating bitch, and validating why intelligent people such as myself will have these doubts. I hope you're one of the laid-off employees who should learn how to, well, you know. Now that I think about it, I hope the same thing for the evil giraffe lady and Asian Bieber too. I doubt anyone who makes a claim because I believe evidence. Prove that you were raped. Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, Deborah Ramirez, and Julie Swetnick were all proven to be liars. The Duke Lacrosse girl was proven to be a liar. Mattress Girl was proven to be a liar. Many of the victims from the lynching trend of the past was due to white women claiming to have been sexually assaulted or raped by black men. I don't automatically believe someone who makes a claim because I'm a rational thinker and not an overly emotional idiot.
Why do you assume a woman's angry because she's on her period?
I don't always assume this, thanks in part to having 3 sisters, but the reason this stigma exists is because it oftentimes is the truth.
Why do you think women that wear makeup are false advertising?
Because they are doing exactly that. Imagine, if you will, that you own a car that you want to sell. It's rusty. The odometer is filled with 8s and 9s, and it smells like mold. Now, you slap a new coat of paint on it, hoping to hide the rust. You tweak the odometer to change those 8s and 9s into 2s and 3s. You spray a few bottles of Febreze and get some of those pine tree-shaped air fresheners. As you make your attempt to sell the car, you tell the potential buyer that the car has been relatively well kept. And they believe you. You sold them a lemon. One that could also have a blown head gasket or worn out brake pads. You wearing makeup hides your flaws and potential health risks, as well as deceives our basic lizard brains into thinking something that you may or may not intentionally be conveying to us. Red lips and rosy cheeks suggest a possible arousal on your part, which tells our subconsciousness that you may want to bang. You are planting false thoughts into our minds, thusly false advertising.
We can say the same thing about your dick size.
No, you couldn't, unless you're desperate to deflect from your failings in life. We don't stuff a sock in our pants every time we go to the store, or to church, or to the bar, or to work, or to our children's school. We don't wear signs on our faces that say my dick is 10 inches long and as thick as a bat.
Why isn't it weird that there's a bunch of old white men sitting in a room making legislation about what I can and can't do with my body?
It stuns me that feminists are still demented enough to say this, knowing that it's no longer the case. However, even if this were still the case, it's because they were elected to do that very thing. Let's all take a bunch of stupid pills and pretend that we all agree that it's part of a woman's body that gets aborted. You women wanted these old white men to legislate your bodies when you demanded a so-called medical procedure to be legalized, and even more so when you wanted it to be government funded. Aside from that, this is what government has done since the existence of government. What do you think the draft is? Could you legally drink at the age of 19? What about jaywalking? Believe it or not, these are just a few examples of government coming up with laws on what you can and can't do with your body.
Do you have a coochie?
That's the most irrelevant question in this entire video. Y'all just attacked the made-up problem of manspreading, something that you leftist shitbags made illegal in some cities. You don't have a dick, so what right do you have to legislate how I sit on public transit? Besides, it makes you sound transphobic. Fuck you. If you can push laws that punish me for not wanting to crush my nuts while sitting down, then I can push to have laws that protect the babies that you want murdered because you don't want to be a responsible adult.
Why are straight guys so obsessed with lesbians?
It's two women having sex with each other. We like sex. We like watching sex. We like doing sex. And this tends to tickle the fancy of a lot of guys. Personally, it doesn't really do so much for me, unless they're really hot and there's some sort of phallic-shaped toy that is used. To top it off, a lot of it ties into the fantasy of having multiple women wanting to fuck us. I would imagine that it's for similar reasons why a lot of women are so obsessed with gay men. Seriously, go to an anime convention. Most of the female fans there are into yaoi.
How does it feel to get kicked in the balls?
It's almost as painful as listening to you. But no, seriously, a way that you might be able to relate to this is to have one of your more sensitive organs, like your liver, get hit really, really, really hard.
Do you ever get tired of trying to be manly all the time?
No, because it's who I am. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I suppose I could say yes to that, since part of being manly is working hard to provide for your family, assuming that you have one. It can get tiring having a blue-collar job with demanding hours, which limits your sleeping hours. Add in having kids that you love so much that they want to spend time with you over their already awake mother, who cares more about herself, by the way, than anything else. So she lets them wake you up. Then you have to help out with the chores that she should be doing because feminism has duped her into thinking that her life is so unfair. I'm gone 12 or 13 hours a workday. Sometimes even more if I'm taking classes at the school I work at. My ankle still throbs in pain from when I hurt it a few months ago. My back has been killing me for well over a decade. My knees hate bending, especially when I squat to pick something up or go up a flight of stairs. Yet I'm still working, because I must work, because I'm a man. So yeah, I guess I do, but you know what? It's worth it, because part of being a man is having the label of provider. And I love providing for my child. Fuck you for attempting to shame me for that.
Why are you so afraid of gender equality?
Instead of saying afraid of, it would be more accurate to say opposed to. And that's mostly because you and I definitely define gender equality differently. What you see as gender equality, I see as female superiority spurred on by covetousness and irrationality.
Why do I deserve to be paid less than you?
Because you're a moron who believes in the gender wage gap.
In what world does 77 cents equal $1?
In the world of feministic mathematics.
In what world does 68 cents equal $1?
In the world of racist delusions.
How is that fair?
Let's pretend, once again, that your inaccurate interpretation of economic reality was, well, reality. Life isn't fair, the end. Now, let's get back into reality. How is it fair that Susan What's-Her-Name, the CEO of YouTube, makes a lot more than I do? How is it fair that AOC, the dumbest member of Congress, possibly of all time, makes a lot more than I do and is already complaining about how she thinks she deserves a pay raise? The answer is that they are working jobs that pay better than being a custodian at a community college. Now, considering that Google has recently been exposed for paying their female employees more than their male counterparts of the same positions with the same qualifications, I wouldn't be surprised if I were to be paid less than you if I worked at BuzzFeed, even if I put in more hours than you. Bite me.
Why are you intimidated by a woman who makes more money than you?
Unlike you, the idea of someone of the opposite sex making more than me isn't intimidating. However, I see less of a reason to hook up with a woman of such. If I were to give up my MGTOW ways and go back to looking for a potential wife, I wouldn't go for a woman who makes a significant amount more than me, because I know that the odds are that she would come to hate me for not contributing more, as well as there would be a huge burden put on me if and when she becomes pregnant. There's also the fact that feminazis like you want women to be paid more because they're women, and that's BS. It violates the equal pay laws that feminism used to fight for. You know, back in the days when they had some good ideas along with their bad ones. Make what you earn, and don't worry about how much I make.
That's awesome. More money.
With an argument like that, why is it such a big deal if a man makes more? More money, right? Oh yeah, it's because you care more about female supremacy because you're a bitch.
Why are opinionated women seen as bitches?
When opinionated men are seen as bosses.
Speaking of being a bitch, women are bitches when they're bitches. It's possible for a woman to be a boss, one who speaks with authority, intelligence, and awareness, and not being a nagging, nasty, demanding, demonic cunt. Men are only seen as bosses when they're, well, bosses. Men can be bitches too, but with this particular setup you're laying out, it's more common for the male equivalent to be assholes, pricks, and stuff like that.
Why aren't you speaking up when you hear your male friends behind closed doors make jokes that are offensive to women?
Because they're jokes, funny giraffe lady. This question is how I know, scientifically, that you are not as funny as I am. I'm not a censorship-happy socialist douchebag, okay? I'm not going to tell someone what they can and can't joke about. Unless it's at work, but that's only because I don't want someone getting fired for telling a joke. Like it or not, sometimes offensive jokes are funny. I'm sure that you yuck it up whenever someone makes an offensive joke at the expense of a man, or men in general.
Why are you so afraid of recognizing your own privilege?
Male privilege does not exist, and I recognize that. Legally speaking, you have all of the power. Socially speaking, you have far more power than you realize, and the amount that I have isn't as much as you think it is. Economically speaking, not only is it illegal for you to be paid less than me based on our genitals, but many companies and industries will offer women more money than men in order to meet forced quotas. And in serious straight relationships, the woman, on average, spends most of the money that the man makes. Women win in all three categories. Why don't you recognize that?
Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just recognize it and do something about it.
You first, mein Führer. Was it as bad for you as it was for me? No, but seriously. It could have been far worse. There's a whole slew of categories that they didn't even tap into, such as hygiene. Why are you farting all the time? Why don't you do your laundry enough? Stuff like that. Or peeing. Why do you prefer to pee while standing up? Why can you never aim in the toilet correctly? Or sports. Why do you love sports to the point of obsession? Why do you follow fantasy football? Stuff like that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that they could have asked that they didn't even tap into. And in a way, I'm actually kind of glad about that stuff. But I'm also a little disappointed. But anyways, I'm going to go to bed, so that way I can try to get as much sleep as I can before my loving son comes in and wakes me up in the morning. So, how was I going to end this? I don't remember. I am that tired. Oh, that's right. Now I remember.